Well, hey guys, I'm here with Katie Allred, and she's with Church Communications, and so excited to have her with us. Hi, Katie.
Hey, Jason, how are you doing?
Well, I'm doing really well. Otherwise, it's a bit. We're here at Easter week, so it's a
Yes,
busy time, and we're in this new COVID-19 era of our society, and certainly turning churches
it's
upside
been
down
wild.
sometimes, inside out. It's a little bit wild, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been a wild time for sure.
So tell me a little bit about church communications and how you guys are helping churches.
Yeah, so right now the group, it's a Facebook group. You can go to Church Communications on Facebook. You can go to
Yeah.
churchcommunications.com if you want to find it. But the group really has pivoted to being solely about figuring out this online ministry, like what it looks like. And it's funny though, because so I have been passionate about reaching people with the gospel online for years.
Yeah.
And then my partner was an online church pastor. So Kenny, yeah, was an online pastor at Liquid Church for a long time. And so we have always been passionate about online ministry, but it's funny. It was like he said it like this, like it's like we were on an island and nobody wanted to hang out on our island, and then all of a sudden everybody was like, "Oh, this is a popular island. We need to get
Yeah.
over here,"
Right.
So, or like we were not the cool kids on the playground, but suddenly we got a nice toy and everybody wants to hang out with us now. Because we have just had, it's just been an about face and how people are trying to figure this out. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's been pretty well. But we've been helping a lot of churches with live streaming, online giving, websites. I mean, you name it, churches have asked, and so we've been handling a lot of requests.
Yeah. You guys are doing an amazing job because I get on Facebook and look through there. And what's really cool about your platform is you're just helping churches that have general questions. And it's so cool to see other churches speaking into it. And as it's become a just one community, if you will, where you can go to get answers to stuff that you just wouldn't really know where to go to turn. Well, why not look to other churches to help you with that? And that's what you've created, which is brilliant.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
we just want to be helpful. We have always had this open-handed generosity
Yeah.
about our platform. We
Yeah.
don't like want to, put everything behind a paywall or whatever. We really want to help as many churches as we possibly
Right.
can.
Yeah.
And so that's been our philosophy since day one.
Yeah. Well, in that, how have you seen churches make this transition to online? And because some churches go, I don't even know where
Kicking
to
and
begin.
screaming.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They just
Kicking
don't
and
want to
screaming.
do
They
this. This
don't
is
want to. Yeah, they're like they a lot. I saw a lot of churches, even churches, my home church, that I grew up in, that were very much like, nope, we're not doing online until like we absolutely have to. And like they even
well,
like I had split people into different rooms, like there were like 10 people in this room, and like they
so
streamed it
funny.
over to. I was like, this is silly. Like just stream it so
Yeah.
people can watch it at their house. But the
Yeah.
problem is too is that in rural Alabama, there's no internet really. So a lot of people didn't have internet at their
Uh,
house to even watch it. So we've had to deal with a lot of that, right? Because a lot of people don't even have the
right.
technology in order to do it. So what I've recommended to a lot of people is freeconferencecall.com, or starting a conference line where
Hmm.
you can do a stream, but you can maybe also do a call where people can listen.
Yeah.
um, it's
Well,
not always the
yeah.
best, but it's another idea. Yeah, we've tried to give a lot of creative ideas over the last week, so that was one that's
Yeah.
come up, especially for
Yeah.
the older demographic that
Right.
still has phones and wants to call. So yeah.
Well, so we're in this season of COVID.
Mhm.
Every church is now online. In fact, it's the only way they grow is online. What happens after we get through this season? Where do you see the church going, or what's going to be the new normal of church, in your opinion?
You call Missional Marketing, you ask. No. I think that, yeah, I think it's gonna look a little different. The first read somebody had posted this, and I was like, yeah, that's right. Like for the last, thousands of years of church has been 90% about the physical location, or
Right.
100% about physical location, and maybe 10% about digital, 90%, 10%. And then in the last
Yeah,
2 weeks has flipped to 90% digital and 10%
it's
about the
true.
location, because the
Yeah.
church is not a building. The church is the people. And I think that's something that we forgot in the last, especially in the last 100 years. I feel like we got super building centric. Like we
Yep.
really cared about what the building felt like and that kind of stuff. And I mean, we cared about the
Multi-campus.
people, of course, but like it wasn't so much remembering like the church is a body of Christ. Like
Right.
the church are people. And so it has been
Yeah.
quite a pivot to figure out what does that look like on a normal everyday basis. So yeah, churches are really kind of figuring out how do I do virtual small groups? How do I do
Mm.
not just live streaming on Sunday morning, but how do I connect with people who are lonely across the city? How do I meet felt needs in my area during this time? That's been
Right.
interesting. Yeah.
Right. How do you think churches are, because if you look, before COVID, church was in the general, the big C church was kind of in a decline in terms of attendance, mainly from younger people not
Hmm.
coming to church. The duns and nuns, they've checked out. How do, in your opinion, how do churches pivot that? And maybe this is an opportunity to reach younger people. And how does a church grow younger in the new world that we're in?
I would have a lot of money if I had a great answer to that. I mean, I don't know, not a lot of money, but like I wish I had a good answer to that. I
Um,
just Um, because and I work with college students. So I'm a professor. For those of you who do not
yeah.
know, I'm a professor at the University of Mobile. So I work with Gen Z, who refuses to be called Gen Z. They all want to still be millennials, which is funny because I'm like, no, I'm a millennial
Yeah.
children. Like I have a house
Yeah.
and I
You are
yell at
not.
people, get off my lawn. You are Gen Z and you are different from me. And so
Right.
yeah, I think, and let me be honest with you, I work at a Christian school, and there are still plenty of young Christian people who want to help spread the gospel and who are still very passionate about Christ. I haven't
Yeah.
seen a decline personally myself because I'm like, our school is growing, and I know that there are tons of people who are passionate about reaching others. So I do know that church attendance has slumped, and I think that's honestly, though, it's not just our generation. I don't think it's just the young people. I think it really is the older people. We're not setting the example
Mm,
that you need to be there every week, right?
mm, right.
Um,
Yeah.
if you think about it for yourself honestly, you're like, unless I was on staff at church, I wouldn't be here right now. And so, we've had to, I think, our priorities as a nation have changed, and we
Mm,
really value convenience over a lot of other things. And so I think that this specific thing has brought church and Jesus back to the forefront of people's minds, because anytime there's death and uncertainty, you
mm,
remember um, Christ, right? Or people turn to religion because they
yeah.
want to be comforted in some way. And I think so. We do have a unique time to share the gospel and to share the hope that we have, the good news that we have in the gospel. And so, but how can
Mm,
we do that, right? When we're all at home. And so digital strategy is the best way to do that. And I think
yeah.
you can do that by meeting felt needs in your community through like Facebook groups, through setting up felt need landing pages on your church's website, so that you can, if people need food, they need money to get through, you can help with those needs when you can.
Mm, yeah.
So, but if I knew how to get more young people to actually attend church, I mean, that would be a blessing, but
It'd be very popular.
I would be very popular on the internet. I don't know if that's the right question to
Yeah.
ask as much as it is, how can we get more people in general to come to church,
Mhm.
because I feel like it's not just not just the young people. I feel like it's everybody. So I think
Yeah.
that after this, we're gonna do so much rejoicing that we can't even be together. you know,
Mm,
we
yeah.
didn't realize what a privilege it was to meet together in the same place until this has happened. I had no idea what a
Right.
privilege it was to have human beings around me, right? I've been alone for 3 weeks at my house,
Yeah. Yeah.
and to say it's a struggle is like, I'm being honest with you, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so what a privilege it is just to have human beings that you can be in the same room with. It's something we
Hmm.
shouldn't take for granted anymore. And I think the church, once we come back, we should pull out some major rejoicing that we can be together again. I
Yeah.
mean, like biblical type of rejoicing, where I don't know. I've thought about that a lot, and I'm like, we should pull out all the stops when we can come together again.
Yeah. We were wired to be in community, and
Yeah,
when you can't do that, well, you can kind of do it like we're doing right here. But when you
right.
can't do that, giving somebody a hug or shaking their hand, it's definitely a different
Yeah,
feel.
for sure.
Yeah, something you said there kind of sparked the church being, when I say every church being forced to, maybe even kicking and screaming to get online. Do you
Hmm.
think, because it seems like some of it's been people don't want to go to church, young or old, just because there's just so many other options, or they've just
Right.
tuned out.
We
My
can go to
pastor,
brunch.
right. My pastor's always said, if you have to try hard not to be boring, irrelevant, and predictable,
Hmm.
and to keep people's attention. So when you look at like the future of the church, maybe even over the next decade, what is going to be some of the challenges that the church faces in keeping the ministry going and keeping reaching people? Because I think there is a passion and a fire under people, not all people, but
Hmm.
how do we bridge that gap?
Well, I do think that this is going to change church. I think it's going to change work. I think it's going to change a lot of things for
Yeah,
this entire generation.
yeah,
Until, everybody doesn't remember this again, like the Spanish flu, right? I'm sure
right.
that the generation that was affected by the Spanish flu, like it changed things about them. And it's going to change things about us, right? Like, I'm not sure the handshake's going to make a comeback.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
really believe that we will change our standard greeting probably in the next year.
yeah.
And like, it will be odd to shake hands. But the handshake as a standard greeting is new too. Like it only came about because you didn't want to look like you had uh, a gun or something. Like it was because you
Yeah,
wanted to show that you were open handed, that you didn't have anything. That you
you're
weren't going to kill
friendly. Yeah,
somebody.
yeah,
Right. Like it was a move of peace.
yeah.
But I do wonder, are we going to start fist bumping? Are we going to start elbowing? Like, I mean, I think it might happen, but the church, yeah, golly, it will change. I think though, here's the thing, it already had changed without us knowing, right? Before a
Mm,
pandemic, it had already changed
mhm.
because I can get great worship music on Spotify. I can access an amazing preacher. If I want to be convicted, I can listen to a great sermon
Right,
on Spotify too, or on a podcast.
right.
I don't have to attend church to get either of those things anymore. But what
Yeah,
the church is uniquely poised to do, and has been poised for the last 10 years, really, honestly, is to provide a unique sense of community that you cannot get anywhere else. Because it
mm,
is so hard to
mm,
find community today. That is what churches should be digging deep into, is the fact that you are known and you are loved,
mm.
and that you are not alone. Like you're not doing your life alone. Like we are with you and we care about you. And that's what, Jesus' message was, right? Like um
Yeah,
every time he healed somebody, a lot of times those were people who were completely lonely, right? Like the woman who was bleeding, or a leper. Like those are people who were outcast from
right,
society,
right.
and
Blind. Yep, yep,
they felt extreme loneliness, right? And
yeah.
today we have such extreme loneliness. I just reading a statistic that I put in a presentation the other day that said we're like 80%, or like no, it was like 60% loneliness was like the factor for Americans in 2019. How much more do you think that is today during this?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
It has to
yeah,
be, and like,
yeah.
praise God, I know God and Jesus, and I have a church family, and I have really good friends. But if I did not have that right now, I would be so struggling.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
so the church is uniquely poised. How can we create these pockets of community for people in our neighborhoods, for the people that we know at work, for the people like, because there are people who are at work who are
Yeah.
very lonely. How can we reach out to them and give them these connections? So my church has done a really unique thing of launching virtual community groups,
Hmm.
and they're completely unique. They're not life groups that were already meeting. they just literally put it on their website. If you want to be in a small group, we will put you in one. And they put a form on their website, and they've just put all these random people in small groups who did
Yeah.
not know each other. And it's going great.
Yeah.
Like,
That's where you meet people. Yeah.
yeah, people are connecting, and
Yeah.
it's in a Zoom room like we're in right now. But
Yeah.
there's plenty of free software out there. You don't have to use Zoom. You can use Skype. You can use, I posted a couple that I found today, Facebook Messenger. There's so many
Yeah.
different ways that you can create these communities. But I think that is it. I think we have got to realize we are a people group, and we can provide this community that people are deeply longing for. And even
Mhm.
before this, right? Even before this pandemic, people were deeply longing for community.
Yeah. Yeah. Well said. And I mean, that's great advice for churches to, because I think we can get so wrapped up in the programming and the weekend, and, we're doing church without doing the community aspect of church, the relationship
Right.
aspect of church. So this is kind of, causing us to shift to figure out, well, how do we connect with people? And I think you're spot on with that one.
We
So
just got to think
hopefully
outside too
this
of
does
our
shake.
bubbles. I think too,
Yep.
like it's easy to
Yep.
focus on our church. You need to focus on people outside of your church, right? And see how can
Absolutely.
you get them connected to these groups, these virtual groups that your church is doing, because everybody's bored and they have time. They have more time than they've ever had. And this puts down a wall that if they
Yeah.
had to physically come to somebody's house or to the church, they would be like, this is weird. But
Yeah.
now they're meeting through this, and they're like, this is a little easier. It's a little less weird. I could just leave if I wanted. So
Right.
honestly, like what a
Right.
great time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so let's go back to church communications. What do you guys, you've got your platform, you're an amazing platform. When you look at the next few years, what does that look like for church communications? Put you on
No,
the
that's a
spot to
great
figure out.
question. Yeah, figure out your whole like plan today, Katie. I don't know. Honestly, I have been preaching and teaching this reaching your community online for the last 5 years about how you can use Facebook groups to create groups in communities. And honestly, it has blown up in the last couple of weeks since this has all happened.
Oh, I bet.
And I do think that we're going to continue teaching and educating as much as we possibly can. We've come up with some pretty neat ideas that are going to come out in the next week, and just try to provide people with content, try to provide churches with content, and continue helping as much as we possibly can. That's really been since day one. That's all I've ever wanted to do, was just help people. So that's what we're going to continue doing, ministering to ministers.
Awesome. Well, I tell you what, thank you. Because if you're a church that you haven't checked this out, go check it out. You're going to be amazed. Get connected to this Facebook group. Go check out churchcommunications.com and just absorb and learn, church. And listen to what Katie's saying, what Kenny's saying, and all the people that speak into this, because it's some amazing resources. Because I've personally watched that, looked at it. I've had the honor to speak in it as well from a guest blog standpoint, and so we've had podcasts like this.
Yeah, you've been a great partner of ours for a long time.
Yeah. And as a church, we need to rally together, and like you're saying, provide this community for people that are hurting, that are living literally right down the street from a church, and they need to get connected. And for some reason, they haven't felt like the church has been their answer. But I tell you what, people are asking a lot of questions. We're seeing that in Google.
It's time.
It is just exploding.
Oh yeah. And if you look at Google Trends right now, Jesus prayer has like skyrocketed. It's literally, it's not like this. It's like this.
It's a hockey stick.
Yes. People 100% want to know more about Jesus and prayer than they ever have before. And so we need to start creating those resources for people too. Like, how do I pray? Like, your church should be the answer to that in your neighborhood.
That's right. And there's all these different resources, all these different platforms that you can get connected, church. And so take advantage of it. So, Katie, thank you so much for spending some time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me, Jason. I appreciate it.
All right. Take care.